There's no spoilers in this video.
No spoilers! Flash it on the screen and shit, like...
Are we gonna get fucking pulled over again?
Are we?
Yeah.
Are we really?
How was Star Wars?
So good.
Yeah?
Yeah.
How
are you?
Good evening, folks. How are you?
How
Good.
long is it?
About
2:20. Good night, guys.
So funny. Oh, that hair feels good, honestly.
Yeah, that guy was the...
Hi, everybody.
Hello.
Hey.
So we just got out of Star Wars Episode 9, The Rise of Skywalker. And before we jump into it, just the general consensus in this car is that everybody here likes and enjoys The Last Jedi.
Yep.
And most of us also really like and enjoy The Force Awakens.
I don't really.
3 out of 4 ain't bad.
Right. So it's fair to say that there should have been some expectation for this movie. Going into this movie, there should have been more hype in general. I can speak for me and say that I think it would have been better if we went with what Last Jedi was trying to do. And this movie is a perfect case of the studio reading internet and deciding to write their movie based off of what the fans say, which is a mistake. Even if you didn't like what would have happened in the other Episode 9, at least it would have been a solid movie, objectively speaking, if we talk about story structure.
And it would have been cohesive to the entire trilogy as opposed to feeling like a piece of something that was never meant to happen.
And it would have been cohesive to all 3 trilogies, I think.
I love so much what a lot of the things that Last Jedi had potential to do in the follow-up. And none of them are here because this movie is fan service, but not in the way that Force Awakens was fan service. It's fan service in, I bet you want this to happen. And a lot of it is somebody read a Reddit board discussing Last Jedi and said, oh, we could just tailor make this movie to be that. And it's not a movie. It's not. And there are really cool parts. I love Star Wars and I love the Star Wars characters. So I'd be a liar to sit here and say I did not enjoy any of this movie. I did. But it's such missed potential. At least that's what I think.
I think that the core problem you have here with the trilogy is that there's more than one vision, and we did not commit to either. We did not commit to either in time that it could have been a satisfying trilogy. Oliver says there were parts he thought were cool. I did not have a singular part that I can personally point to and say, yeah. There's most of me is like, I feel nothing. Or, man, I was, no thank you, I don't want this. I said this before, I find it difficult to really discuss this without talking about spoilers, so I'm going to leave it at that until I can collect more thoughts.
I definitely agree with basically everything you're saying, that it's very muddied. It's kind of just, I don't want to say it's all over the place, but it just doesn't really have a clear vision of what it wanted to be, the trilogy as a whole, and this movie definitely portrays that. There are a couple scenes where I thought were really good. I do think Rey and all the scenes Rey and Ren had together were probably, for me, the highlight of the movie. But there were a lot of scenes where I was just like, really? Come on, let's get over with it. Like, it just felt so predictable, and I just kept rolling my eyes at so many things because I just knew what was going to happen at times, and it was just tired. The entire first act of this movie was
mess.
Off. It was just a mess. Like, it felt like it was on fast forward. It felt like the tone was off, where like they're doing something that's supposed to be super serious, but like they're like joking and having fun, high-fiving and stuff, and I'm just like, read the room, guys. Like,
we're talking about cohesive vision, and I don't think that a lot of people say 7 to 8 is where that got lost, and I don't feel that way. I think there was a very compelling direction going on with Episode 7 into Episode 8 that could have made for a very, very satisfying conclusion, not only to this trilogy, but to the whole Star Wars saga, which we'll talk about more on the podcast. But what this movie does is it plays it so safe that it expels what we thought we were going to get and decides to make you paint by the numbers Star Wars. And we're at a place where that worked for Force Awakens, and it does not work now because we've had 2 movies establishing what this is supposed to be. I can't help but think I keep saying it, but it's just being pussy whipped by the audience, and that's a bad place that we're going to as far as entertainment goes. We've had the internet, we can say whatever we want. Now studios are listening, and that's a double-edged sword because look what just happened.
I feel like Sonic was kind of that tipping point. That was the last domino to fall, and now that happened, I feel like companies are really trying to listen to the overwhelming fan, like the audience now.
But they tried to give us Star Wars that was different, and they tried to give us Star Wars that was going to meet a lot of expectations when they made Last Jedi. And they answered a lot of things, like people were like, I don't want Rey to be anybody's kid. So they did that. They were like, oh, I don't want just like Luke to be thrown into the story like Obi-Wan. So they did that. And this movie heard everybody say, no, now I don't want that, and then did the opposite. So it's just very frustrating that we can't commit to one thing. You know, because you tried to do something different and bold, and people fucking revolted. And now we have this awful movie here. Awful's a stretch, but it helps me prove my point.
Do you guys remember when you were in English class in high school, or maybe even like middle school, and they go over, you know, all the themes of like literature, and one of those big ones is that big F word called foreshadowing. And then they hit you over the head with like really obvious ones like Romeo and Juliet. Whoever wrote this movie also did that. Every single thing that happened in the movie, every major thing that happened in the movie was foreshadowed at one point in time.
Everything's a plot device, too.
Yes. And for a movie that's supposed to be PG-13, it definitely plays to the audience as if they're children and really need things very much laid out.
It has prequelitis. And it's very much like when George Lucas came out and said, no, Star Wars is made for kids.
Right.
And we were moving away from that. We were moving quickly in that direction.
I just want to point out the way that you say that everything is foreshadowed I think that's just very much a way that J.J. Abrams likes to tell stories with his mystery box. I don't know if you've ever heard him talk about that, where he presents you with a thing and you don't know what it is, and then he takes it away and you're wondering what it is for the mystery, and like that exactly is the opening scene of the. I mean, this is, I guess, what it is, the opening scene of the key or the waypoint, and it shows you what it is, and people taking it, and you're like, whoa, what is that mystery box? Now I take it away and I show you a different mystery box.
Talking about middle school English, not only does the movie dumb it down as if you're a kid, which is exactly the problem that people have with the prequels, but it also feels like it was written by a kid.
The dialogue, yeah.
There's a big rumor floating around that George Lucas was called in to write a script for this movie, like a second script for reshoots. And I heard that, I was like, no, horseshit. George Lucas doesn't want to do that. But listening to this now, the dialogue is just as bad as his prequel dialogue, so it wouldn't shock me, to be honest, if he punched this thing up.
I hate sand.
My allegiance is to the Republic, to democracy.
From my point of view, the Jedi are evil.
Did you see how the dialogue is extremely expositional at times, where it's just like...
And they're talking not only in exposition, but in ways that people don't talk.
Yeah.
Again, unless you're listening to a sixth grader try to do all the dialogue in a play.
I'm just thinking in my head when the Millennium Falcon returns back and it's on fire in the beginning of the movie, which isn't really a spoiler. Rey and Poe are like up in arms at each other about like how they treated each other's things. You're a difficult man, blah blah blah. Like, and it was like very like
woman.
It was very like I felt like a middle school student had written a play. Yeah. And then, then they were just, acting it out, doing a dramatic reading.
I had an instance of the same thing that was, the first, oh, I don't know about this, where I can't give it away because it's a major spoiler, but something happens in this movie with someone that I really don't like as an actor.
Oh.
And there's a sequence of dialogue. I can't go farther than that because if I say who it is, it's a spoiler. But not only is the dialogue a problem, but the things that happen in the movie that are story beats for the end battle are, again, things that a fifth grader would have made up.
Especially how we get to the resolution and how our villain is defeated. When our villain gets defeated, it doesn't really flow very well, because what they say is going to happen is then what doesn't happen, and then it does happen, and then they go back and change it anyway. You lost me. Like, like, why are we doing this?
I thought this plot and resolution especially was just the most simplistic thing that could have possibly happened. Small little things that I feel like would have changed things. And there were honestly scenes in that final act where honestly I felt like it was a Fast and the Furious movie. To certain characters,
the camera would not stop not even moving.
That, but the cuts on people to just say stupid dialogue that's just fucking pointless to what's happening.
There was a scene in this movie where there was something very visual going on that was supposed to be not a reveal per se, but it was supposed to have a dramatic effect. And it took so long for it to sink into me because the camera kept whipping around and I could not make out if it was focusing on people or rocks. Again, I'm trying to be real vague. The other big bummer here is that it doesn't seem to know what the interesting parts of the script are, because I think one of the strongest Star Wars characters ever is Kylo Ren, and he's definitely the most interesting character in this movie.
Yeah, I agree. He's been my favorite since the beginning.
Yeah.
I love Adam Driver. I think he's an incredible actor. I think where other people struggle is where he thrives. I really feel like he very much encapsulated his character. It never felt corny or kitschy or, like he was a tryhard. Or if you did feel like he was a tryhard, it was because his character was trying to feel like a tryhard. Since
Episode 7, he has felt legitimately like part of the Star Wars canon, and like he fits there very naturally. Yeah. And I can only say that about him and BB-8. Everybody else is very forced to.
Honestly, I think the person who feels the most out of place, honestly, is Rey.
Yeah. I was just about to say, where this trilogy fails, where the other trilogies have succeeded, even the prequels, is that I think that their main character should have been Ben Solo, Kylo Ren. His whole journey, mission, arc between good and evil was so much more interesting than who is Rey and why is she important.
The fucking God's gift to the fucking world, chosen one.
This trilogy would have been so much more interesting if you made it about Kylo, because even though Luke did struggle, he only struggled for about 3% of the entire trilogy, of his entire trilogy. Ben is struggling 50-50 between, even more than that, maybe 70-30.
And he's having more real people struggles.
Yeah, exactly. And it's just so much more interesting and captivating just because of who you cast as him. If it had been somebody else, if you had put Oscar Isaac as the, I wouldn't have cared. You know what I mean? It wouldn't have been nearly as interesting. But I really do feel like Adam Driver made Kylo Ren. He made the character who he is, and that's why you want to watch him. And it's just so disappointing to now have it be over, and for us, not spoiling it, for us to know how it ends, and they're just kind of like, okay, I guess that's it.
If you're on the third movie and we're still asking why is the main character important, and that's the plot is, why is the protagonist an important character to this story? Rey should be interesting now, not because of who her parents are, but because she has done interesting actions in the movies, and that is not what has happened. And I have a real issue with that, because that's not good storytelling. That's exposition all the way through. And the only character who got a character arc is thrown to the wayside in this movie. And after that, the movie dies. Leia being in the movie is so distracting to me. It was not done well.
That was going to be my last point, was just how bad the CGI was. Yeah.
Well, and you can see recycled footage, because there's one point, and it's at the beginning of like her being shown, where Carrie Fisher lifts her arm to hand Rey a lightsaber, and then it shows a shot of an arm being lifted to hand you a lightsaber. And then on the cut back to Carrie Fisher, she lifts her arm a third time to hand over one item. And right there, I'm like, this is not going to work.
I don't like Leia's inclusion within this movie. I've talked about this
You
beforehand.
could have just
that
never mentioned her again.
I don't think that she should have been in this movie. I think it's kind of disrespectful to have her character,
Especially the way they did
within
it.
this movie, and it doesn't work in the slightest. The lines of dialogue have to be written around, so all of the dialogue with her is awkward, so she can say the lines
that they have.
of her, and it just becomes so apparent that she could not have been on set.
Yeah.
All of her, she's
Literally.
clearly not
Her-
actually in any scenes, and all the moments where there's like a scene where they wanted an action of her, and they just have a silhouette, and it's like, okay, so that you don't have her, so you can't do the scene you wanted to do. So
I
you have
noticed
some
that
other
too.
person
I was
being
like,
silhouette.
oh yeah, that's definitely her.
A lot from behind, too.
Exactly. Any moment where she directly interacts with another person, except for there's the moment that's in the trailer where she hugs Rey, is like the only moment where she directly interacts with a person from the front.
Mm-hmm.
Every other moment is she's from behind.
I don't even think Adam Driver was on set that much.
I don't think so.
I think
either.
there's a real fucking reason that they had him in that helmet the whole time, and all of his facial shots are shoulders
like
up.
like
that
the
is
like the
less jarring
on-set
to
Darth
me.
Vader.
Like, you can see, like, the same issues we have with our hair when you guys
Yeah.
are editing our videos. I'm, like, watching the same exact thing happening. And I'm like, this is a multi-million-dollar
Dollar production.
production.
Billy D. Williams does not feel like he was part of this thing at all.
I mean, he was.
Yeah.
And he was very clearly here, and he was shoehorned hard, worse than Carrie Fisher. It was more distracting than
Well, I
Leia.
think that he was shoehorned hard because there was no more Carrie Fisher. So
Yeah.
they're like, you know what, let's just keep giving you old characters so that you feel like...
And he
Yeah,
did
but with
not
that
work.
being said, I feel like there were a lot of times where C-3PO really shined.
But C-3PO,
And R2-D2.
Chewbacca, and a couple surprise appearances really shine much more than those characters do,
Yeah.
especially Lando.
Lando was just there to be there. He was like, hey guys,
Lando
what's
wasn't
going on?
Hey,
the
remember
story.
me? My disappointment is immeasurable, and I will not recover. No, that's not true. It wasn't
My life is me.
It wasn't the worst Star Wars movie. I still think that Attack of the Clones is one of the worst movies I've ever seen. It is better than all of the prequels and Solo. I will give it that. And there are strong moments in this movie where it shines, which makes it even more frustrating when it doesn't. So I'm going to give this movie a C. C minus. Give it a C minus.
I don't know. I wish I could have liked this movie more. I was not very excited going in. I had like a gut feeling because of a couple different things. I don't know. I'm gonna give this a D.
I didn't have a lot of expectations going in. I don't love Star Wars. I don't hate the prequels either. I have a lot of issues with this movie, and there's very small redeeming things about it. But what's weird about it is I don't find myself like hating this movie. I just, like, as I said to myself going in, I'm like, this movie's just gonna end up existing, and that's it. It's just gonna be out in the world, and that's it. I'm gonna give it a D plus. Like, it's not F territory, and it's not D minus, where it's just like, it's just tough to watch. But I think the few redeeming things that I do like about this movie are what give it that plus.
So, because I'm not as nearly as invested in the Star Wars universe as you guys are, I'm much more of a casual fan. Somebody on my Instagram had asked me, like, when the movie was getting out, how I felt, and my response is the same thing I'm going to say here. The movie was all right. If you're a really big fan of Star Wars, you're going to be disappointed. If you are a casual fan like me, you probably won't have too many strong feelings about it, which is exactly how I feel. I don't really have too many strong feelings. There are some technical things that I think they should have, we should expect more of them for, which we do, which we had issues with. But I do think that there were some redeeming qualities. I think of the three, this one was probably the weakest, though. It definitely goes, for me, Last Jedi, Force Awakens, and then this one. Having said all that, I still think I enjoyed it. I still want to see it again just to sum up kind of everything. I might feel differently after watching it one more time, but I think I'm going to give it a C+. I'm feeling like it's very middle of the road. It's passable for the things that I really enjoyed, like Adam Driver's performance. I mean, like, I just love him, and I think that it's very easy for there to be an actor that you love do something that you hate. But I didn't hate him in this at all. I like him, and I think that he did a very good job. Whereas his performance is an A+, everything else is kind of like a D.
Can you get
Knew
pulled
it,
over when
knew
you're
it.
already parked? Is that technically getting pulled over?
I mean, it's getting stopped.
You're getting stopped, I guess.
Because they pull behind your
Well,
car.
Then
so
you're
that you
already
can-
stopped.
Yeah, but they pull behind your car so you can't go anywhere.
We're getting escape
Checked.
prevented.
We're getting traffic checked.
Treated as
We're
a
getting
flight
entrapment.
I want to go home.
All right, I'm going.
risk.
Goodbye.
Good night.